I mean, it's one criminal after another, led by the chief criminal, Joe Biden. Now, I am in a very good position to say that because I discovered it. I discovered his criminality in 2017. I revealed it in early 2018. I put out an entire RICO case against him in 2018 and 2019, and in 2019, and I gave it to, for example, I gave it to Secretary Pence, who said he was going to investigate it and never did, and I gave it to Bill Barr, who said he was going to investigate and never did. In fact, he left two witnesses in Ukraine under threat of death and never followed up on them. So I am quite convinced that the whole situation is one attempt after another to destroy this man by any means possible. The first one was Hillary Clinton paying $1.1 million to create a completely false Russian collusion story, and then to push it to the point of trying to remove a lawfully elected president, which generally would put you in jail for espionage and treason. But Hillary Clinton is in the golden circle above jail,
right,
as is Bill Clinton. And we found out that Joe Biden is at the top of that scale because when you combine what I found before the hard drive and what's on the hard drive, you've got 35 years of crime in which he pulled in about half of 50 million.
Wow.
Now, how do I know it's half of 50 million? And you're saying, well, Rudy, because the press covers up, even the conservative press covers up the text from Hunter Biden to his daughter that says, I gave half of my salary to my father for 30 years. Now, that is that's evidence. That's evidence that he gave his father money. So when they say there's no evidence that he got money, they're lying. It's evidence. Just like, for example, when Michael Dowd says, I paid money for Donald Trump. That's evidence. It may be untrue, but it's evidence. Beyond that, and they're lying about there being no evidence, and that's one of the best pieces of evidence, an admission. It comes into evidence in a trial as an exception to the hearsay rule. And second, I have a money laundering transaction that is perfectly clear on paper. Goes from Ukraine to Latvia to Cyprus to New York into the Biden account and $800,000 out to Joe. You also have bank transactions where you see Joe getting money. You have him interchanging with and having involvement with all of the foreign crooks, including communist spies and communist agents. He has always said he didn't know anything about his son's foreign dealings. There is a audio tape of him calling his son, indicating he knows all about his foreign dealings. But nobody plays that. You know, the cover-up by the left-wing media is nothing short of criminal. The cover-up by the conservative media is absolutely ununderstandable. They do not emphasize the damning, overwhelming evidence that his son has in writing that I paid him half my salary for 30 years. If you think about that, it explains everything, doesn't it?
So conservative media has some work to do on this story.
The conservative media is afraid. I mean, I was on ABC for 5 years, had one of the biggest shows on ABC. And when I wanted to talk about the 2020 elections, they wouldn't let me. And what did I want to talk about? I wanted to talk about the fact that Georgia had discovered 375,000 missing ballots. I mean, you might as well confess if you have 375,000 missing ballots.
I remember that.
And your name is the Secretary of State of Georgia, who is a complete scoundrel. Nor did the conservative press even report that the governor removed him from the election commission, and the lieutenant governor said he had never run a good election in his life. And that's the guy that Trump said, you know, that Trump talked to and brought the case against Trump. So this case has been so horribly dealt with in terms of censorship by the crooked media and the conservative media, the establishment conservative media. I don't mean you can almost divide it this way. The people consigned to this room will tell the truth. The ones out there on the floor will tell a lot of the truth, but they won't talk about the 2020 election.
Right.
They won't let you. And here's where it becomes terrible. As you discover new evidence proving that the 2020 election was rigged, you can't bring it out. And the best way to create an atmosphere where we fix the 2024 election is to play pretend about the 2020 election.
Right. When it comes to the 2024 election, how hopeful are you that former President Donald Trump will once again be President Donald Trump?
I'm very hopeful.
Yeah?
Hopeful, more hopeful than I've ever been. I think that everything that could happen for a candidate to win has happened, except I saw them steal it in 2020. I'll tell you how they stole it even without fixing the ballots, with censoring the hard drive. That should be impossible in a free country.
Right.
Also, it turns out that this idea that the hard drive was, a questionable piece of evidence, the FBI had validated it in December.
Right. It's been verified now. All those outlets
it was
that
verified
lied
in
about
December of 2019.
Right.
I gave it to the Post in October of 2020. It had been verified for almost a full year. And what was the defense of the government? It wasn't verified, which meant the FBI kept quiet, and the Justice Department, and Barr, and Wray, and they let their president get defrauded. And they let us get a lifetime criminal as our president. There's no way that an attorney general or director of the FBI, with even just a modicum of ethics, would have allowed that false censorship to take place. And remember, some of the defense for it was, well, we didn't know. We now know they definitively knew it was Hunter Biden's hard drive. And it possesses self-contained crimes, meaning you don't need anyone with a hard drive to realize they committed a crime. Joe is there texting him. He's texting Joe. They're talking about what they talked over with Joe. And he then explains the whole payment arrangement of the RICO scheme, which is half the salary to my father for 30 years. And then you see money going from him to his father. Like, for a certain period of time, he's paying his father $50,000 in rent on a home that Hunter owns.
Right.
Well, if you own a home, you don't pay rent on it unless you're laundering money to make up for that half of your salary that you're paying to him. And it answers the biggest question in the case, which should have been self-evident to any decent person. Why would one of the most crooked men in Ukraine, a murderer, why would Xi Jinping, a multiple murderer, why would the biggest female oligarch in Russia, let's just take those three, give him $3.5 million, $11 million, and $31 million?
Why would they?
Because half of it was going to his father, and his father would do favors for them. For example, you want the favors? He comes into office and he gives up the Bagram Air Base. The Bagram Air Base is 400 miles from China. No sane person would give that up. Who cares about the United States? In a time of aerial war, we're on their border and we give up the air base? And you want me to believe it's a coincidence that they paid millions to his family and he gave up the air base? I don't believe that. I prosecuted too many criminals like him, corrupt politicians like him.
Right.
I know him. This is a lifelong criminal. It is a disgrace that he's in the White House. He's also some kind of a pervert. I mean, this guy told us before we made him president that he likes little girls touching the hair on his legs.
Pretty weird, very weird comment.
I don't think you put somebody in the White House who doesn't explain why the hell they like little girls touching hair on their legs, particularly when you get a look at the pictures that I unfortunately had to look at, which contains child pornography, which the FBI ignored. The media will never tell you that, even though they have the child pornography.
I know you have to go in a second, so I want to ask you while we still have you here. When it comes to the 2024 election, do you think that New York is in play? We know you have very good perspective here.
Do I think what?
That New York is in play.
Yes. You know how they rate states? Solidly Republican, solidly Democrat, leaning, da-da-da-da-da. I would put it at the outer fringe. I would say right now it's moved away from solid Democrat to almost Democrat to with about 5 points separating them in Biden's favor. And because of its history, as leaning Democrat. But would I be shocked to see him win by 3-4%? No. Our gubernatorial candidate almost won. I think he lost by 4 or 5. He was out-resourced tremendously. We have won big victories in the suburbs over the last 2 to 3 years. Trump won our suburban counties. He was the first Republican to win our suburban counties since Reagan. So he has been creeping up on New York.
So
It'll be a long shot. It'll be a long shot. Look, better chance he wins New York than California.
That's fair to say.
Better chance he wins New York, I think. Well, maybe I'm not right about this. I was going to say Illinois. And better chance he wins New York than Massachusetts,
right,
which is solid and small. But there's a big vote for him in New York.
Right.
Like upstate New York, he's gonna go wild. I mean, he's got probably 7, 8 out of 10 votes, and upstate New York is all a question of turnout. Yeah. I mean, the politics of New York State has always been 3 pieces: crooked New York City, which has been crooked for 200 years. So you never know what they're going to turn out because they'll cheat like hell. The suburbs that used to be Republican but moderately Republican, so they didn't make up for the big number in New York. And then the upstate, which is just as rabidly Republican as the city is Democrat.
Right.
And then that's how we had, for long time Republican governors. Tom Dewey, who was my predecessor as U.S. Attorney, Nelson Rockefeller,
right,
Governor Wilson. We had Senator Javits, Senator D'Amato, Governor Pataki, and Mayor Giuliani. So it isn't possible to have Republicans in New York. It's not usual. Reagan won New York twice.
Right.
Last Republican to do it. This is about as close as we got to Reagan in a long time.
So maybe.
Maybe. And,
probably not.
I'm not going to say probably not. I also think he's got movement in 2 votes that are critical in New York. The Jewish vote, where the latest poll, Biden's leading by 4%.
Right.
That's ridiculous. Now, I won with the Jewish vote. So I probably know more about that and can probably help him a lot with that.
Well,
because I know the Jewish community probably than any community in New York City. And what's going on in Israel, and the way Biden and his people have double-crossed Israel. And if they go to somebody other than Biden, it's going to get worse for Israel. Because Biden at least has a sort of residual affection for Israel.
Right.
The other ones hate Israel.
They're very open about it.
Yeah.
Well, Mayor Giuliani, we're so grateful that you could join us today. Thank you so much.
You do a good job.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you.